represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, and welcome back to the Epiphany show. Shiny side out, rather. This is show number 616. And we're going to talk about the hypothesis, which we have been talking about for some time now, but we're getting close to an end. We're on page, let's double check here. We're on page 72 of 94. 72 of 94, yes. And look, hey, before we start, this is Listener Funded Radio, so if you can, please do. Money. Give money, that is. If you can give money, great. Yeah, you know, or cryptocurrency, anything really. If you cannot, that's also okay. Tell people about the station, and maybe one of these good folk can donate, because we need money to run the station. It's actually really important if you want to keep the station alive. Now, so we've been talking about hypothesis. Hypothesis essentially is the theory of everything, really. It's a theory of everything which draws upon the research of, well, everybody, really. And it comes and tries to connect all the possible dots that are there. And that's the one thing that you probably have to remember. That is that none of the phenomena, none of the strangeness exists in a void. And what we have done, mostly in the Western world, and anybody who's adopted the Western way of thinking, really, we have separated the world into two parts. One is called the natural world, and the other one is called the supernatural world. The supernatural world is completely disregarded. Okay, it's nah, we don't know about it. No. Now, I think that's a mistake to do that, because there really only is the natural world. The supernatural is not part of the natural world. You know what I mean? Like, it's not some extra thing that grew on the side of it, or that, you know, somehow was grafted on the real world. It's part of it, and that's where we all fall down, because we've taken this leap in our minds that says, oh no, there's the natural world, the normal world, right? The normal world, and then there's all the stuff that is not normal, like Homer Simpson says. That's not normal. But that's not true. That's not true. It does relegate certain phenomena, experiences, events, and I guess sightings and experiences, etc., onto the I don't believe you plane. You know, I mean, clearly they can't be true, because, you know, that's just nonsense. And we know this because all the experts agree. It's not part of the natural world. It's a supernatural or paranormal or metaphysical kind of thing. No, I reject those definitions, because all of it makes up the cosmos we live in. We might dismiss it and ignore it, that's okay, but we can't deny its existence, because it's there. There it is. Here it is. Simple example. You're alive now. I'm alive. I'm moving about. I'm talking. I'm thinking. I'm doing stuff. I'm affecting the outside world. Communicating with Dave. You're listening to me. And then the next moment I'm dead. What's the difference? What's the difference? I'm still physically there. My body's still there. If you weigh me, right, and before and after death, there won't be much of a difference. Okay? What's the difference? What has happened? I mean, my body, like I said, decay hasn't set in yet. Okay? But there's nothing happening. The body is no longer doing anything. So what's missing? What's missing? That's the question, isn't it? And something is missing, clearly. We can't deny it, because it's now no longer there. But it was there before. So this is where it gets really difficult. Okay, and people will say, oh, you know, it's the electrical impulses from the chemical, you know, things that are happening in your body, and all these other things that are going on blah, 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 blah. That's all true. But there's something greater yet. And there are experiences which we have now documented in video and photos that are not hoaxed, that we can't explain. You look at it, oh, that's That's paranormal. Oh, whew, Dave. Problem solved. It's paranormal.
Oh, thank goodness. We've named it something.
Sweet. It's like, I have these conversations with, because a lot of doctors in my family, right? I have these conversations a lot about the placebo effect.
I love it.
Look, the thing is this, right? They say, make it no, that's the placebo effect. I said, yeah, I know. It's placebo effect. But guys, these guys got better without the fancy medication. Shouldn't we investigate that? Oh, no, it's a placebo effect. No, you don't understand. Yes, it's called a placebo effect. I understand that. That's what happens when you get better without the medication you thought you had.
That's right.
Isn't that something we should look at? No, Mickey, I don't think you understand. This is the placebo effect. So, okay, understood. So, and look, again, I didn't study medicine. Maybe I should have. But for me, this would be an astounding field of research. I mean, what happens? Okay, so here's a group of people that get the medication, and maybe they get better with it, maybe they don't. That's okay, right? And then there's another group of people over here, and they get sugar pills. But that, for some reason, some of them get better. So the question is, would they have gotten better without the sugar pills? Would they have, or did the sugar pills somehow
allow them to believe that they can get better?
Exactly. So, it's psychosomatic. What?
That's the placebo effect, Mickey.
Yeah, which is the psychosomatic effect. They go, which psychosomatic means psyche is mind over body, or the mind creates a physical manifestation within the body. Right. That's psychosomatic. Yes, but don't you think we should look at that before we give people medication that kills them? I mean, if we have the capacity to fool our bodies into believing that they can heal themselves, the bodies, that is. Isn't that something worth investigating, maybe? So that's just all I'm saying here, right? But we have drawn that line, and we give labels to stuff. It's negative growth. It's placebo effect.
Sure is.
2,000 millimeters of rain, and that's it. So good, we're done. No. It's all one. There's no paranormal. There is no metaphysical. Okay, it doesn't exist. It's just part of our life. And you know what the funny thing is, Dave? This is the funny thing.
What is it?
You talk to a lot of native people. Not all the native people in the world, but a lot of the native people that haven't been touched by specifically Western civilization. For them, ancestor worship and the spirit world experiences that we would consider a paranormal, or metaphysical. For them, that's just or supernatural. That's just what it is. And I've looked at this a lot now. For some reason, a lot of the researchers now go to Utah, into the Uinta Basin specifically, because that's where skinwalker ranches, etc. But all the native people that are being interviewed, or that show people, different places, they all say the same thing. Why do you want to investigate this? This it's like, because they know there is something there that is not good for you, right? So they know this, and they're telling these white people, because they're mostly white people, not all of them, of course, but they're telling these Westerners, if you will, this is not good for you. You shouldn't look at it any further. It'll hurt you. Yeah. Okay, sure, whatever. And off they go, poking into the snake's nest, right? But no one listens. But for the native people, it's just part of life. It's just it's a thing. Here it is. This is a thing. I mean, it's been a thing ever since we can remember. Okay, do we know what it is? No, we don't know what it is. Okay, but we accept it. Do we really know do we know the nature of a fox? Do we know the nature of a tree? Really? I mean, we know there's a tree there, but do you know what I mean? Can we really understand a tree? Well, maybe not. And maybe it's the same with these phenomena. I mean, do we need to understand them? Can we understand them? Do we have the capacity to understand them? And that's where we have to be very careful not to fall into the trap of separating our worlds into different parts, because they're not. However, pardon my ramblings. We talked about the pineal gland, Dave. Why don't you? In fact, I've rambled so much. Why don't you take us through some of the basics for the detox?
All right, I'll do 1 to 3. Okay, so mercury is shown as number 1 in some basics for pineal detox. Well, mercury is really bad for the pineal gland. It's poison. Don't let this get into your body. Mercury tooth fillings are pineal toxins. Have them removed and replaced with one of the new UV curing polymers. They're actually not bad. Mercury tooth fillings, so all medical vaccines are also mercury tainted. They have a version of mercury in there. It's a molecule. And thimerosal, a vaccine preservative, is methyl mercury. That's what I was talking about. And it's very difficult to get out of the brain once it's in there, says this article. Avoid eating fish and bottom feeders such as shrimps and prawns. You can also look at what eats them. Tuna and dolphin meat is particularly bad for mercury as well. The bigger the fish, the higher the concentration of mercury in its body tissue, is what they've found. So another thing is the eco light bulbs. They have a single drop of mercury, or so do fluorescent battens as well. If you smash a mercury vapor, if smashed, mercury vapor is released into the room and you can inhale it. So avoid those at all costs and don't break them intentionally like I did when we were children in tunnels. Don't ask. We had lightsaber fights with fluorescent battens, and now I wouldn't go near one, not for the phosphorus but for the drop of mercury. And a fluorescent batten doesn't work unless it has that droplet of mercury in it. And I can only think, Becky, of the Twin Towers collapse with all those fluorescent battens in them.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that, and the asbestos. They had asbestos riddled. Now, mercury can be removed from the body by the daily use of, what's that word? Chlorella?
Chlorella, yeah, that's it.
Wheatgrass and spirulina. Cilantro herb taken daily can remove mercury from brain tissue. Well, there's my shopping list right there. Wheatgrass. I think I'll just do the wheatgrass. That's pretty good. It doesn't stop the calcification of your pineal gland, and it won't remove my teeth. I had a teeth factory going on. Number 2, fluoride. In toothpaste and tap water is where you'll find it, and you'll find it in natural springs in some parts of the world only. Some parts, not everywhere. And if you talk to someone about fluoride, Becky, do you know what they say? It's natural. You'll find it in the normal spring water. Well, you don't. You don't find it everywhere in spring water. It's just here and there in pockets around the world. It's another heavy-duty poison, fluoride. Do some Googling to find if you can buy fluoride in 44-gallon drums. And have a look at the labeling. It's listed as a poison. You can see it on the label. Avoid it at all costs. It calcifies the pineal tissue and basically shuts the gland down. Yeah, I think mine went on holidays a long time ago, Mickey. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. When I did actually I had an MRI, and I sent Mickey the scan, and he was flabbergasted by the tooth. Anyway. Organic foods. This is number 3 on the list. Organic foods. Some pesticides are pineal toxins. Organic, healthy food with a high ratio of raw is supportive to pineal detox. Meat is not helpful either. Some people who channel seem to not be affected, but for many, the toxicity and density of meat will pose challenges, and when we want to make the work easy, if we can, and we want to make the work easy, we can. Gee, that was a tough sentence. What does this come from? This must come from healthyliving.org or something, right?
It's actually from Humans Are Free.
There you go.
The next few are interesting, actually. Alcohol and smoking, obviously, you want to avoid those. These need to usually go along with the emotional attachments to using them. And apparently, for most of us, it boils down to self-worth issues and unresolved trauma.
That takes me back.
Why did I drink? I'm just trying to think. I mean, I was young. In Germany, you start drinking when you're pretty young. You just drink, I guess, because everybody else is drinking. Do I drink a lot now? Not really. I have a wine here and there, maybe beer here and there, but not on a daily basis. Certainly not even on a weekly basis, I would say.
No, likewise.
Smoking, I don't smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I used to smoke when I drank, when in nightclubs. I used to smoke at my worst. I probably 2 or 3 packets a night, and only when I was drunk. When I was sober, I couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
So I was. And
I bet you woke up feeling fantastic after those nights.
Oh no, I was the best. But I never actually got nicotine addicted, and it's a funny thing. My father said to me as well. He didn't have an addictive personality, and neither do I nor my brother. We have never been addicted to anything, which is fortunate, I guess, having been exposed to the things that I've been exposed to. Anyway, point is, try to avoid alcohol and smoking. It doesn't say anything about marijuana here, so I won't include that necessarily. Heart healing is point number 5 here. Now, what is heart healing? First of all, it raises the overall vibration of the being and heals fear. A useful advantage when we start seeing other dimensions. So, heart healing is really meditation and mindful practices is really what that is. Okay, you need to be able to raise your own vibration, meaning don't give in to the fear and uncertainty, because that weighs you down and it lowers your vibration. And I know it sounds airy-fairy and wishy-washy, and 30 years ago I thought all this metaphysical stuff I'm not really interested. I want to know about Atlantis. I want to see Atlantis, and I want to see Bermuda Triangle. I don't care about that psychological stuff, right? But believe it or not, this is important stuff. Other toxins. Okay. Well, if something is toxic, don't put it in your body. Right? I mean, that's right. If you can't say its name, this is actually good. Homer Simpson, benzoid, sodium benzoid. That's bad. So if you can't say its name, don't put it into your body. Now, toxins include artificial sweeteners, aspartame K, refined sugars. Phenylalanine is in squashes, believe it or not. Any E number beginning with a 1. You know those E numbers you get on food?
Yeah. I don't like the 600s either, to be honest with you.
Yeah, just look. Honestly, avoid all additives. It's my. I cook as much as I can with as much fresh produce as I can for my kids. Not always possible, and yes, of course, there's fast food in there somewhere, but we all have to live in the world. But just try to avoid it. Deodorants, unless you can find organic deodorants. I mean, nobody wants to stink, but there are deodorants which are better for you than others. Cleaning chemicals are bad, obviously. Dental mouthwashes are bad. In fact, this is a funny thing. Some years ago I started having my teeth cleaned on a regular basis, every 6 months or so, and then my teeth would stain. Even though I had stopped smoking, I had stopped drinking coffee and tea, and I said to my dental hygienist, "Why are my teeth staining so much?" And she goes to me, "Oh, do you use mouthwash?" And I said, "Yeah, this is the mouthwash I use." She goes, "Well, that's why. It stains your teeth." I said, "No way." She goes, "Yes, it does." So I stopped using dental mouthwashes. In fact, what it says here, salt water is suffice, and that's true. Salt water will kill all the bacteria in your mouth. Also, and this is really important, especially in a car, those dangly pine things, air fresheners.
Don't
avoid like the plague. Don't ever use them. What I do, I've got essential oils which I put into a vaporizer.
Nice.
For my bedroom and for my kids' bedroom. I mean, they like peppermint, they like bergamot and citrus and such. I mean, there's some really nice ones. And but it has to be an essential oil. And go to one of those fancy schmancy essential oil places and make sure it's just that, no other ingredients, just the essential oil. Finally, what is really good for you, is raw chocolate or raw cocoa. It's actually a pineal gland stimulant and a detoxifier in high doses because of the high antioxidant content. That's raw cacao, though, right? Obviously not milk chocolate processed with sugar. So the darker the chocolate, let's just put it that way, the better it is for you.
80 or 90% should be good for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I use chocolate, a lot of 99% chocolate, you can get it from Lind actually, in my cooking. It gets a really nice note to your dishes. And in fact, there's a whole thing that South Americans do with chocolate in their cooking. It's you don't just eat it, you can cook with it. It's just phenomenal.
The cooking, right, okay, right, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's what happened. So what, Dave? So what? So what, I say? How can the pineal gland help us? I mean, seriously, so what?
Well, Descartes was obsessed with understanding who we are. He questioned everything, even the notion that we can know ourselves. He observed that the senses can be fooled, that most of what we think we know is really illusion, and finally struggled with the possibility that our own identity as individuals was also not real. But in the end, he concluded that if it was possible to doubt our own existence, there had to be something that was capable of experiencing this doubt, and that thing was our true self. His famous statement endures, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. The full phrase was dubito ergo cogito ergo sum, I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am, aptly captures Descartes' intent. Now, just before, I'm just going to do a quick aside. Whenever you say to yourself, because of a situation that's going on, that's pressing against you, the situation, not physical, and you said, this is driving me crazy, whatever it is, that's I think in the same way that Descartes was trying to explain that there's a part of you that is still clutching on to either the sanity or the truth or who you are. And I say that this is my saying, not Descartes', that if you say to yourself something's driving you crazy, that's your sanity holding on to the post, not trying to be swept away. And my proof point is if you went into an asylum, not seeking asylum, but to maybe a mentally challenged place where it's a refuge, it's safe, big walls, lots of those jackets that wrap right around. If you went and asked someone whether they inhabit, like an inhabitant of that nature, that building and its surrounds, if you asked one of those persons if they thought they were crazy, they would say no, because their sanity was washed away. And just by holding on to it, that's the part of you that you absolutely know that is you're clutching onto. And I think that's the same place. Becky, open for comment?
Oh, good.
Yeah, good. Okay, so here's a very large quote, and I'm sure it's translated, and it's from Descartes. He says, although the soul is joined with the entire body, there is one part of the body, the pineal, in which it exercises its function more than elsewhere. The pineal is so suspended between the passages containing the animal spirits, and the guiding reason and carrying sensation of movement, for example, that it can be moved by them. And there's a gap, and then it continues, and it carries this motion onto the soul. Then conversely, the body machine is so constituted that whenever the gland is moved in one way or another by the soul, or for that matter by any other cause, it pushes the animal spirits which surround it to the pores of the brain, says Descartes. Today, with an understanding of computers, we might take issue with Descartes, that thinking process could be part of the circuitry of the neurons, synapses, and neurotransmitters that exist in our material brains. This real self is much deeper. It uses the thinking process, but it remains apart from it, observing the process. The real self is, in fact, consciousness itself. Obviously, the two phenomena are connected. Consciousness interfaces with the thinking process. So the question really is about how this interface of material mind and spiritual consciousness happens. If we can understand how consciousness interprets our thinking self, then hopefully we can reverse the process and become aware of our consciousness, our true self. That is enlightenment.
And that, is ultimately what we're struggling with here, right? What is the nature of existence? What is the nature of consciousness? I mean, in fact, who cares, right? I mean, why care? And this is where I'm reminded of this state we're living in right now, the work, sleep, eat, shop kind of cycle that we all go through and accept as reality. This is our world. This is how life is. Well, is it? Is it? I mean, these were big thoughts people were thinking, and today we've gotten further. We know now that our brain operates on a quantum level. Okay, it operates not in the Newtonian or even Einsteinian universe. It operates in the quantum universe, and that's really important if you want to know, because it means that we're living in a world of probabilities, not certainties. We're living in a world of probabilities, and if we are aware of our own consciousness, then that very consciousness can guide the creation or uncreation, destruction of reality. Okay, that's so. Oh, that sounds very crazy. Not really, because that's where we are today. Our latest scientific thoughts are coalescing around this idea of consciousness and the role consciousness plays. We can no longer avoid it. We've tried for a long time. Oh no, we just flash robots. It's all mechanical. God is a watchmaker. You know, the universe is mechanical. Blah blah blah. Not true. It's just not true. We're living in a field of probabilities. Okay? Consciousness is ultimately the arbiter, I think, of our reality. So, but where does it live? Where does it live? Where does it sit? Is the pineal gland, in fact, a gateway or the prime mover of our consciousness in this reality? Is it? For thousands of years, people have looked at the pineal gland here and go, I mean, there's something here. There's something we don't know, but is it a memory? Is it an understanding? Is it empirical in nature? And I don't know. Look, there's a view of the pineal gland in history, of course, and although commonly attributed to Descartes, the idea that the pineal gland was the interfacing organ where the spirit of man gained access and animated the human body was in fact the idea of a Greek physician named Herophilus. Okay? And now, there may very well have been someone before him, potentially. But that's what we know. This was 300 years before Christ. So we're talking about someone who lived 300 before the Common Era. So 2,500 years ago. Herophilus was dissecting corpses and documenting what he observed. His specialties were the reproductive system and the brain. Prior to Herophilus, people believed the executive office, so to speak, of human consciousness was the heart. Egyptian mummies had their hearts carefully embalmed and preserved, while their brains were removed through the nasal passages and unceremoniously discarded. But Herophilus knew that the brain was the controlling center, and he went on to discriminate between the various parts of the brain and assess the different behaviors associated with them. Herophilus noticed that the small pineal structure was singular, unlike other brain features that are mirrored in the left and right hemispheres. It is the first gland to be formed in the fetus and is distinguishable at 3 weeks. It is also highly nourished. As we know, it's the second highest blooded after the kidneys. The pineal gland has been supplied with the best blood, oxygen, and nutrient mix available in the human anatomy, second only to your kidneys, as we discussed. Because of these unique and special atomic configuration, Herophilus rightly concluded it had a major role in consciousness and was the gateway to our real self. Herophilus is credited with the invention of the scientific method, dogma of just about every scientific inquiry today, which consists of postulating theories and conducting experiments to prove or disprove them. It is ironic, then, that the scientific inquiry of the pineal gland has been vigorously avoided because of its association with spiritual phenomena. Remember? Paranormal? Incapable of empirical scrutiny. Only recently have scientists become interested in knowing more about this mysterious gland. Herophilus wrote many volumes about anatomy and illustrated them, much as Leonardo da Vinci did centuries later, but sadly his work did not survive the destruction of the great library in Alexandria, where they were stored. Now, before we go on, a couple of things are important. One, the symbolism of the pineal gland, both as a pine cone and a lotus flower, goes back further than 2,500 years. So I suspect that the understanding of the pineal gland was much older than that. And second, I think after death it didn't really matter too much what happened to your brain, and maybe the Egyptians understood this as well. Having said that, if you look at Sumerians and Babylonians, which predated the Egyptians, you will find pine cone imagery in abundance as well. So it's important to understand that I think the knowledge of the pineal gland goes back well beyond Herophilus. Dave.
The Third Eye, actually that was the good band. Actually, not Third Eye Blind, but the Third Eye. And Mickey, after the show, I'll send you a video clip with the song, which was a remake, and it was the best one of it. By 1884, the field of comparative anatomy was revealing evidence that human organs could be traced back to lower vertebrates. F. Allborn recognized that the pineal gland was originally a photoreactive organ in fish and amphibians and was sometimes located outside the skull, just under the skin. Its function as a trigger for reproduction was noted some 70 years later. The pineal gland was responsible for evaluating the length of the day and night, calculating the correct season to mate, and turning up the sex drive. By 1958, Aaron Lerner discovered melatonin, a vital molecule produced in the pineal gland from another common neurotransmitter, serotonin. He also validated the fact that the production of melatonin varied, stopping during the daylight and ramping up shortly after darkness. Melatonin, it was learned, was responsible for making us relaxed and putting us to sleep. For a while, it was not known how this small gland, buried deep in the middle of human brains, could sense light or darkness, but it was later discovered that there was a link to the pineal gland from the retinas, which, oddly enough, also contained melatonin. In no time, the pineal gland was being called the third eye, and because of its location at one of the 7 chakras, and Mickey can discuss that at the end of the sentence, it was reputed to be the center of spiritual and psychic energy. Mickey, quick aside.
Oh, look, ultimately, it is really interesting to see how the energetic systems of both the Hindu world and I guess the Chinese world overlap when it comes to energy flows, both for acupuncture as well as the chakras, right? And it actually is one of the chakra points, right? I mean, it's you can understand it, and that knowledge or that lore is thousands of years old.
Mm.
Okay.
It's not
So
the
again-
center of the forehead, though.
No,
No.
no, it's not. It is where your nose comes together. Sort of gets into your forehead, where
The
where your
bridge. Yeah.
eyes,
Hmm.
the bridge of your nose. That's you draw a line straight into your brain. That's where
That's where it is.
it actually is. So a lot of people draw an eye on the forehead or a dot on the forehead. That's not it. That's the wrong location. It is
Like
slightly
the Indian culture puts a red dot just in it, just
Correct.
above. Yeah, that's right.
right. So it has to be. It's actually right between the eyes.
Yes.
That's where the location is.
So as hallucinogens become popular in the late 1960s, interest in altered states of consciousness as a means of spirituality peaked. Even on my aside here is it had been going on in small tribes all around the world from the beginning of time, if you want to make it like that. But yes, peaked into the mainstream city folk of the New World, let's put it that way. Researchers discovered that LSD, or the CIA's version, which was called LSD-25, that was their 25th version of it, became highly concentrated in the pineal gland and pituitary glands. The altered state was produced by LSD's lysergic acid diethylamide ability to imitate serotonin at the synapse, where the neurons communicate with each other. Since both serotonin and melatonin are also concentrated in the pineal gland, this third eye was considered a portal to consciousness, or what author Aldous Huxley called the door of perception.
Brave New World.
Yes. I'll give you the big quote. Even gurus have commented on the pineal, equating it to one of the chakras, Meki.
All psychic systems have their physical aspects in the body. With Aina, a chakra, the physical equivalent is the pineal gland, which has long baffled doctors and scientists as to its precise function. Yogis, who are scientists of the subtle mind, have always spoken of telepathy as a siddhi, a psychic power for thought communication and clear audience and so forth. The medium of such siddhis is Aina chakra, and its physical terminus is the pineal gland, which is connected to the brain. It has been stated by great yogis that the pineal gland is the receptor and sender of the subtle vibrations which carry thoughts and psychic phenomena throughout the cosmos. Satyananda, 1972.
But is any of this supported by Herophilus's scientific method? Many experiments were conducted on so-called psi, or paranormal phenomena, in the 1970s. Dixon found that the pineal gland was a prime focus of this activity. He noted that psi activity was most successful in a relaxed, drowsy state, similar to those induced by melatonin. Other studies found correlations with melatonin and the practice of yogic meditation, thought to be a prerequisite for enlightenment. I'll do it again, Meki.
Yogic practices for 3 months resulted in an improvement in cardiorespiratory performance and psychological profile. The plasma melatonin also showed an increase after 3 months of yogic practices. The systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, mean arterial pressure, and orthostatic tolerance did not show any significant correlation with plasma melatonin. However, the maximum nighttime melatonin levels in yoga group showed a significant correlation with R equals 0.71 and P less than 0.05 with a well-being score, which is statistically significant, in case you're wondering. The observations...
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going. You're right.
No. That's just the last bit. The observations suggest that yogic practices can be used as psychophysiological stimuli to increase endogenous secretion of melatonin, which in turn might be responsible for improved sense of well-being. End of quote.
So, more dramatic evidence comes from mystical and near-death experiences induced by a chemical called DMT, by dimethyltryptamine, the traditional sacrament of South American shamans. DMT closely resembles both melatonin and serotonin and occurs naturally in some tropical vegetation as well as the human body. It is thought that stored DMT is released from the pineal gland just prior to death, causing the out-of-body experience and mystical visions reported by NDE survivors, near-death experience survivors. While there has been no empirical evidence linking the pineal gland to the production of DMT, its association with melatonin, from which it is made, seems to strongly suggest this possibility. As an endogenous or naturally produced human psychedelic, this is a quote by the way, I believe, this is Strassman Rick J. from 2001, it might mediate spontaneous psychedelic experiences such as near-death and mystical states. Rick also says, I also considered the pineal gland a likely source of this endogenous DMT. As such, the pineal might be a spirit gland. That's from 2001. Medical researcher J.C. Calloway from 1988 suggested that naturally occurring DMT might be connected with visual dream phenomena, where brain DMT levels are periodically elevated to induce visual images and possibly other paranormal states of mind. So, although empirical proof of esoteric functions of the pineal gland have not been found, the idea seems worth pursuing. I agree.
Yeah, so to be clear, I mean, this is Western science being very Western, meaning arrogant.
That's right.
And oh, look at me, I've got a doctorate. Whereas these yogic practitioners, as well as people that are experienced in other forms of energy healing, energy flux, etc., in both the body and the world, have been doing this for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and they're not studying it. So this is actually probably a very important point of distinction to make here. In the Western world, in scientific circles, we study a phenomenon, right? That's pretty much what happens. From the outside, though, right? I mean, a few scientists actually get involved quite deeply, and sometimes with detrimental consequences. But nonetheless, it's usually just an outside-in kind of thing. When it comes to these Eastern practices, and when I say Eastern, I include many of the African and American indigenous people as well. It's a living the life. They're living the life. These yogic practitioners, the people that practice yoga, and I mean practice it, not just go to a Vikram yoga, for half an hour every week to sweat and to get fit, but people who actually live that lifestyle have an astounding control over their body. And I mean astounding. I've seen some amazing things, just the muscular control they have, and the ability to slow down their heart rate, and other practitioners of other forms of I guess, mind-body disciplines such as meditation have also been measured and found to be quite different from the average Western type person in their brain chemistry, as well as the brain wave composition that makes up their brain function, if you will. So people that meditate a lot and deeply have a very different kind of brain to you and I, for the most part. Right? Practice. So these are people that practice this. This is the difference. They live this, the yogic or the meditational practices. They live them and they are them. Whereas the Westerners come along and study them, and they go, "Oh, look at this. This happens here, but we're not sure. We're not entirely sure. Maybe it is. Blah blah blah." So, to be honest with you, I'd rather look at the experiences of one who lives that lifestyle and practices it, and can show me the effects on their psyche and body, than someone who is just studying it, because you will never ever understand it. Let me give you an example. I love the show Frasier. Love it. The original. The original. To be clear. To be clear. And Kelsey Grammer is a phenomenal actor, but there was an ensemble. The show only worked
because
of
the team. That's right. Yeah.
It was the team, 100%. Like Seinfeld. Anyway, point is this: Frasier Crane is not physically very, impressive. Right? He doesn't have athletic ability. Neither does his brother Niles. So, in their late age, in their 40s, they're challenged to ride in a bicycle. I think it's some kind of charity event, the bicycle race. And nobody, except for their father, knows that they can't ride a bicycle. So what they do is, they say, it's like riding a bicycle. And then Frasier goes, yes, I understand it in theory, but I lack any practical experience.
Oh, no.
Right? And that's really the difference here. Frasier Crane could tell you, it can tell you about the history of the bicycle, how it actually works from a kinetic point of view, right? Kinetic motion and how it all works, the gears, how you could assemble a bicycle, the best bicycle places to go bicycling, if you will. All of that. All the intellectual capacity, all the intellectual burdens and debt that you would have around bicycling, he would have. He can give you that. But he cannot ride a bicycle. And that's what this is. These scientists can tell you all about this, the chemicals over here and the functions of that, but they have never experienced, because they've never pushed their body to the limit of the yogic or even the meditational experience. We look at people such as the Shaolin monks, right? And we are astonished at their ability in the martial arts. They're doing amazing physical feats. We look at yogic practitioners who can, like I said, they slow down their heart, they can be buried alive, they've got amazing control over their entire body, to the point where how's that even possible, right? And certainly some acrobats have the same thing, right? Where they can, do amazing things.
I know freedivers. I know some freedivers make you do the same thing. Mm-hmm.
But it's because these people practice a certain lifestyle.
Right.
They practice all of these things. As a scientist, you can talk about it all day long, and that's nice. But you're not it. You're just talking about it, right? And you will never ever plumb the depths of it, because you can't. It's impossible for you, right? In the same way that Frasier Crane has a theory of bicycle riding in his head, to actually sit on a bicycle always ended in tragedy. There's a whole show around this, and that's really the difference between how, in my opinion, many Westerners approach these kinds of phenomena, right? And how the East approaches it. We'll just live it. We'll just live it. And this is what happens. This is how it works. Do we know how it works? Not necessarily. Do we know why it does that? No, not necessarily. But we're doing it. We're doing it. It's being done, right? I mean, there's some stories, again, only stories, of people that were levitating. Like Western travelers would come to places like Tibet, etc., or India, and they would see people levitate. Were they hoaxed? Maybe, but maybe not. The point is that we have not even begun to understand fully the possibilities of ourselves in the West, right? Placebo effect, perfect example. Placebo effect. What? Placebo effect. Well, hey, stop.
I'll tap the sign again.
I know, right? But this is really very, very important. And look, we spent so much time on this because, look, I've spent most of my life working on this kind of stuff, right? Like looking and trying to understand how the cosmos works and all of it, right? Am I right? I don't know, maybe not. It doesn't really matter if I'm right or not. But the point is, you got to wonder, right? You have to learn as much as you can. And I see the differences. I've traveled a lot, right? And coming together with Dave 13 years ago for the show, longer now, 14 maybe, right? That gave me a great opportunity to collate more and more material, to talk to more and more people. I mean, we spoke to so many people over the years. Not recently, but certainly many, and so lucky that we actually managed to speak to some of them before they passed. Mm-hmm. But this is not entertainment. Okay, I mean it's meant to be entertaining, yes, but it is not entertainment. None of the stuff we share with you, we make up. This is not meant to be, attention grabbing or make you laugh or keep you entertained. Not really. All right. Ideally, you take something away from this and you go, oh wow, this is okay. Well, maybe I hadn't really thought about that one, or I didn't really draw that parallel, or I didn't come to that conclusion, or whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? But this is not idle time Dave and I spend on this. This is important time, and we're recording it, so there will be, well, who knows, maybe a permanent record of all our things on various media platforms, etc., for people to go back to, because we do bring it all together. A lot of the research we bring to you comes from somebody else, absolutely. What our value is to put it together for you in a way that maybe makes sense, but also draw parallels, because there are some things that we've brought to you that nobody else has thought of, okay? And that's a fact, right? And it is really getting to a point where the hypothesis is coming to be a new cosmology, at least for me, where, okay, well, this is how the real world actually works. Mm-hmm. This is how it all hangs together in actuality, right? This is no longer some kind of fancy, thing that talked about at parties. This is actually, and because so many people before us have done so much research on this and have invested so much time on these things, and still are today. There are people that are practicing yoga, they're practicing I Ching and martial arts. But with a spiritual aspect to it as well. There are people who are spirit walkers. There are people who believe they can transcend, the barriers between levels of consciousness. Okay, and then some people do it with drugs, and some people don't need drugs. Okay, are drugs a shortcut? Well, it seems that maybe they are. Right? Even the person that isn't a practitioner can gain an insight, but there is a danger here. Now, bear in mind that a lot of these mystics and shamans and monks and ascets and yogis spent their life practicing these things, preparing their mind and body for these experiences. Their entire life is geared toward that. Okay? So they have got a certain resilience, a certain strength of character, brain chemistry, etc., etc. I don't care, or constitution, I don't care what you call it. Whereas, a 20-something or a teenager even that, dabbles in psychotropic substances might not have the same kind of outlook and might have a very bad experience, in fact. Because of fears and uncertainties and hang-ups in their life, and it all is amplified. See, electricity is neither good nor bad. It just is. You can use it to light your room, or you can use it to electrocute someone. It's entirely up to you. This is the same. And it's more so with drugs. If you know what you're doing, good for you. If you don't, you have to be really careful. I know stories, personal friends of mine, that had some really, really bad, I'm talking about tragically bad experiences.
Mick Jagger once famously said, it doesn't matter where you go as long as you come back.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Right? And that's very shaman-esque, to be honest with you. I think he might have made very many journeys on his own.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. There was one experience I had in my life. I want to say I was.
With 2 minutes left, Becky.
Oh, sorry. I was probably a teenager. I was lying on my bed, and I was staring up in the ceiling. And when you close your eyes and there are these geometric patterns when you press against your eyes that appear, I started seeing them without pressing against my eyes, just on the ceiling. Mm. And I knew if I let myself go, I would be falling into the ceiling. I mean, metaphorically, and I would be gone. Now, I don't know what kind of experience that was, but it felt terrifying, so I didn't. I was at the precipice of letting go, and I pulled back because I was terrified. I was clearly not ready for anything. Right? So And no substances were involved at all. Nothing. Not even sugar. So it was a sobering experience, right? And I have had other experiences since then. Some of them enhanced, some of them not, and some of them were terrifying. Yeah. And others were not. There was one experience where I could no longer distinguish the flow of time. And I know that sounds crazy, but I didn't know what happened in what sequence as it was happening. There's the music.
There it is, right there. Look, stay tuned for Jeb's awesome show After Hours coming up next, and we're going to see you Tuesday and Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Time for breakfast with a cup of Plato's Cave. See what I did there? Anyways, stay safe, guys, and Happy New Year.